The photographer's voice was shaking so badly I could barely make out his words. "Mrs. Patricia Brennan? This is Michael Hayes from Timeless Moments Photography. I shot your daughter's wedding 5 weeks ago. I need you to come to my studio today, right now if you can. There's something in the photographs, something you need to see before anyone else does. And Mrs. Brennan, this is crucial. Please don't mention this call to Lauren. Not yet. Not until you see what I found." I remember my hand tightening around the phone, my coffee going cold on the kitchen counter. "What are you talking about? What's in the photos?" There was a long pause, the kind that makes your stomach drop. "I can't explain over the phone, but I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never, ever had to make a call like this. Please come alone, and please come today." I'd spent $42,000 on that wedding. Every detail perfect, from the ivory roses to the string quartet during the ceremony. I'd watched my only daughter Lauren walk down that aisle in my mother's vintage lace veil, her face glowing with the kind of happiness I hadn't seen since her father died 6 years ago. Her new husband Derek stood at the altar crying actual tears of joy. 300 guests. A reception that went until midnight. Champagne toasts about soulmates and forever. I drove home that night thinking I could finally breathe, finally stop worrying about Lauren being alone, finally trust that someone else would take care of my baby girl. I was so completely, devastatingly wrong about all of it. What Michael showed me on that computer screen in his small downtown studio didn't just break my heart. It detonated every assumption I'd made about Derek Morrison, about the fairy tale wedding, about my daughter's safety. Within 48 hours of seeing those images, I'd be sitting across from a detective laying out evidence of fraud. Within 2 weeks, I discovered Derek had married 3 other women in 4 different states. Within a month, I'd learned that one of those women was dead and another had vanished without a trace 17 months ago. And somewhere in the middle of that nightmare, I'd have to tell my daughter that the man sleeping beside her every night, the man she'd pledged her life to, wasn't even using his real name. By the time everything unraveled, I'd spent hundreds of hours on the phone with investigators, lawyers, and the families of women I'd never met, but whose stories were mirrors of my daughter's. I'd lie awake replaying every interaction with Derek, searching for the signs I missed, the red flags I rationalized away because I wanted so desperately for Lauren to be happy. I'd question every instinct I'd silenced, every concern I'd swallowed, every warning I'd dismissed as maternal overprotectiveness. And I'd learn the hardest lesson of my life, the one that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning drenched in cold sweat, the truth that every mother needs to hear but prays she'll never need to use. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your child's life is the one they love most. If you stay with me through this story, I'm going to show you exactly how a predator operates, how he chooses his victims, how he builds trust, how he isolates them from the people who might see through his performance. I'm going to walk you through every mistake I made and every warning sign I ignored. Because somewhere out there, another mother is meeting her daughter's perfect boyfriend and feeling that tiny, uncomfortable flutter she can't quite name. And she's going to talk herself out of it the same way I did. This isn't just about what happened to Lauren. This is about the system that allows men like Derek to destroy life after life after life, while everyone around them smiles and celebrates and writes checks for wedding cakes. So before we go any further, I need you to understand something. This story gets dark. It gets painful. There were moments I wanted to stop digging, stop asking questions, stop uncovering truths that once learned can never be unknown. But I didn't stop. And by the end, you'll understand why sharing this, reliving the worst chapter of my life for strangers on the internet, matters more than my privacy or my pride. Because if even one person watches this and trusts their gut, if even one mother speaks up when something feels off, if even one daughter asks the hard questions before signing a marriage license, then exposing our nightmare to the world will have been worth every second of pain. My name is Patricia Brennan. I'm 61 years old. I've been a critical care nurse for 37 years, a widow for 6, and a mother my entire adult life. I thought I knew how to spot danger. I thought I could protect my child from anything. I thought the worst thing that could happen to our family already had happened when we lost Lauren's father. I was wrong on every single count. Before we go deeper into what Michael Hayes discovered in those wedding photographs, Before I tell you about the phone calls and police reports and the moment I had to sit my daughter down and destroy her entire world, I need you to do something. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from, because this isn't just an American problem. This is happening everywhere, and we need to know how far this reaches. And if you've ever had that feeling, that inexplicable sense that something about someone isn't quite right, even though you can't point to anything concrete. If you've ever been called paranoid or overprotective or controlling for questioning someone's story, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Because the information in this video, the patterns I'm about to show you, the tactics these predators use, this could save your life or the life of someone you love. And if you choose not to subscribe, I want you to leave a comment explaining why. Tell me why you'd scroll past content that might be the difference between your daughter coming home safe and your daughter becoming a statistic. I'll wait. This story doesn't have a Hollywood ending. There's no scene where everything gets tied up neatly and everyone goes home happy. Real life doesn't work that way, especially not when you're dealing with someone who's spent years perfecting the art of deception. But it does have an ending that matters. It has information that could change everything for someone watching right now. If you've ever felt like something was wrong but couldn't prove it, if you've ever been told you were imagining things, or being too critical, or needing to let your adult child make their own choices, if you've ever swallowed your concerns because you didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law or the paranoid mom, then you'll understand exactly why I'm telling this story. Stay with me. Lauren is my entire world. I had her when I was 29 years old, 3 months after I married Thomas Brennan, the love of my life and the best man I've ever known. We built a good life together in Columbus, Ohio. Thomas worked as an electrical engineer, and I worked nights at Riverside Medical Center, so one of us could always be home with Lauren. We weren't wealthy, but we were happy. The kind of happy that doesn't need expensive vacations or fancy cars to feel complete. Thomas coached Lauren's softball team. I never missed a single school play or parent-teacher conference. We had family dinners every night at 6 o'clock. No phones, no television, just the three of us talking about our days. And then 6 years ago, on a Tuesday morning in March, Thomas went out for his usual morning jog and collapsed 2 blocks from our house. Massive heart attack. He was 55 years old. The paramedics said he was gone before he hit the ground. Said he didn't suffer, and I'm supposed to find comfort in that, but I never have. After Thomas died, Lauren and I clung to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. She was 33 when we lost him, working as a pharmaceutical sales rep, living in her own apartment across town, but she started coming home more. Sunday dinners became sacred again. We'd cook Thomas's favorite meals and tell stories about him, and cry and laugh, and slowly, painfully, we figured out how to be a family of 2 instead of 3. I watched her grieve in ways that broke my heart. She'd been daddy's girl since birth, and losing him hollowed something out inside her that I didn't know how to fill. She dated occasionally, but nothing serious. Nothing that lasted more than a few months. She'd tell me she was fine, that she was focusing on her career, but I could see the loneliness in her eyes. I recognized it because I saw the same thing every morning in my own mirror. So when she called me one evening in September, 2 years ago, with that electric excitement in her voice, I felt relief flood through me. She'd met someone at a medical conference in Cleveland. His name was Derek Morrison, and according to Lauren, he was brilliant, charming, successful, and completely different from anyone she'd dated before. Mom, he's a medical device consultant. He works with hospitals all over the Midwest, helping them optimize their surgical equipment procurement. He actually understands my job, understands the industry, and when I mentioned Dad, when I told him about losing him, Derek got tears in his eyes. Real tears, Mom. He told me his mother died of cancer when he was in college, and he knows what it's like to lose a parent too young. She talked for 45 minutes straight that night, barely pausing for breath, and I sat on my couch, smiling so hard my face hurt. This was the Lauren I remembered from before Thomas died. This was my daughter coming back to life. So when she asked if Derek could come to Sunday dinner the following week, I said yes immediately. I cleaned the house top to bottom. I made pot roast, Thomas's recipe. I bought fresh flowers for the table. Derek Morrison arrived at my door at exactly 6 o'clock, carrying a bottle of wine and a bouquet of white lilies. He was handsome in an understated way, probably 6 feet tall, dark hair going gray at the temples, warm brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He wore dark jeans and a crisp button-down shirt. Nothing too formal, but clearly he'd made an effort. "Mrs. Brennan, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Lauren talks about you constantly." His handshake was firm, confident. He looked me directly in the eye. He complimented my home, noticed the family photos on the mantel, asked thoughtful questions about Thomas. Over dinner, he was attentive without being overbearing, funny without trying too hard, successful without being arrogant. He told stories about his work that made Lauren laugh. He helped clear the dishes without being asked. He thanked me 3 times before they left. I stood at my front door watching them walk to his car, watching him open her door for her, and I thought, this is it, this is the one. Looking back now, I can see all the tiny cracks in his performance. The way his stories about his childhood were always vague, lacking the specific details that make memories real. When I asked where he grew up, he'd say, outside Detroit, but never named a town or a neighborhood. When I asked about siblings, he'd pause just a fraction too long before saying he was an only child. His phone rang twice during dinner, and both times he silenced it without looking, which at the time seemed polite, but now I wonder who was calling and why he couldn't risk even glancing at the screen. And there was a moment, just one, when Lauren got up to get dessert, and I caught him staring at the wall with this completely blank expression, like he'd turned himself off when he thought no one was watching. But then Lauren came back, and he lit up again. And I told myself I was imagining things, told myself I was being overprotective, told myself that after 6 years alone, my daughter deserved happiness, and I needed to get out of the way. Derek became a fixture in our lives after that. He came to Sunday dinners every week. He attended Lauren's company events as her +1. He integrated himself so smoothly into our routine that within 2 months, it felt like he'd always been there. Lauren was transformed, glowing in a way I hadn't seen since before Thomas died. She talked about future plans again, about maybe buying a house, about travel and possibilities, and all the things she'd stopped letting herself want. I was happy for her. Genuinely, completely happy. So when Derek asked if he could speak to me privately one Sunday evening after dinner, when Lauren was in the kitchen making coffee, my heart started racing with anticipation. He sat across from me in the living room, in the same chair Thomas used to occupy, and he looked nervous in an endearing way. "Mrs. Brennan, I know I haven't known Lauren very long, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I'm in love with your daughter. I want to spend the rest of my life making her happy. I'm asking for your blessing to propose." What was I supposed to say? That something felt off even though I couldn't articulate what? That 6 months seemed too fast even though Thomas had proposed to me after 4? That I had this nagging feeling in my gut that I couldn't explain or justify? I looked at this man who'd brought my daughter back to life, and I said yes. I said yes, and I hugged him, and I cried happy tears when he slipped a diamond ring on Lauren's finger 2 weeks later at the restaurant where they'd first met. She called me at 10 o'clock that night, screaming with joy. "Mom, I'm engaged. I'm getting married. Can you believe it?" And I told her I was thrilled, told her Derek was wonderful, told her I couldn't wait to help plan the wedding. Because what kind of mother would I be if I stood in the way of my daughter's happiness based on nothing but a vague, uncomfortable feeling I couldn't even name? The wedding planning consumed the next 8 months. Lauren wanted a spring ceremony, something elegant but not too formal, somewhere between 150 and 200 guests. We toured venues every weekend. We tasted cakes and compared floral arrangements and debated color schemes. Derek stayed mostly out of it, said he trusted Lauren's taste, said whatever made her happy was fine with him. Looking back, that should have been another warning sign, because most grooms have at least some opinions about their own wedding, but at the time it seemed sweet, seemed like he was being considerate. The only thing Derek insisted on was keeping the ceremony relatively private, no social media posts until after the honeymoon, no live streaming for distant relatives. "I just want that day to be about us," he told Lauren. "About you and me and the people who matter most. Not about performing for cameras or worrying about online reactions." Lauren thought it was romantic. I thought it was a little unusual but not unreasonable. Now I know it was strategic. The cost of the wedding climbed higher than I'd anticipated. Lauren and Derek offered to contribute, but I told them to save their money for a house. Told them this was my gift to my only daughter. Told them Thomas would have wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams. The final bill came to $42,000. The venue alone was $12,000. Add in catering, flowers, photography, the dress, the band, the open bar, and suddenly my savings account was nearly empty. But when I watched Lauren try on her wedding dress, when I saw her standing in front of that mirror with tears streaming down her face saying, "Mom, I wish Dad could see this," every penny felt worth it. I'd have spent twice as much to see that expression on her face. I'd have given anything to know that she was going to be taken care of, that she wouldn't spend the rest of her life alone like I knew I probably would. The wedding day arrived on May 14th. Unseasonably warm for Ohio, the kind of perfect spring day that feels like a blessing. The ceremony was at a restored barn venue 40 minutes outside Columbus, all exposed wood beams and string lights and wild flowers. Lauren looked absolutely breathtaking in a fitted lace gown, with her hair swept up, wearing the same pearl earrings I'd worn at my wedding and her grandmother had worn at hers. I walked her down that aisle because Thomas wasn't there to do it, and I felt his absence like a physical ache in my chest. But I also felt pride and hope and relief because my baby girl was getting her happy ending. Derek stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored navy suit, and when he saw Lauren walking toward him, he cried, real tears running down his face. His vows were beautiful, specific, full of promises about growing old together and building a life full of love and adventure. Lauren's vows were equally heartfelt. I sat in the front row weeping, surrounded by our closest friends and family, thinking this is what healing looks like. The reception lasted until nearly midnight. Lauren and Derek had their first dance to At Last by Etta James. I danced with my daughter during the mother-daughter dance and whispered in her ear that her father would be so proud and so happy for her. Derek danced with his supposed Aunt Margaret, the only family member he claimed to have, an elderly woman who barely spoke and left before dinner was served. The toasts were touching, the food was excellent, the bar stayed busy all night. I watched Lauren and Derek circulate among their guests, watched them cut the cake and pose for photos and laugh with college friends and co-workers. They looked so happy, so perfectly, completely happy. And when they finally left, in a vintage Rolls-Royce decorated with just married signs and trailing tin cans, when I stood in the parking lot waving goodbye as they drove off toward their honeymoon in the Florida Keys, I felt this enormous sense of peace settle over me. My job was done. Lauren was safe. Lauren was loved. I could finally stop worrying. I drove home alone that night, exhausted and emotionally drained, but satisfied in a way I hadn't felt since Thomas died. I kicked off my heels, hung up my mother of the bride dress, washed off my makeup, and climbed into bed, thinking about how empty the house felt, but also how that emptiness didn't hurt the way it used to. Lauren had Derek now. She had a partner, a future, someone to come home to. I didn't need to worry anymore about her being alone or settling for the wrong person or giving up on love entirely. She'd found her person. The wedding was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. I fell asleep that night with a smile on my face, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd just handed my daughter over to a predator and paid $42,000 for the privilege of doing it. 5 weeks later, Michael Hayes, the photographer, would call me with trembling voice, and everything I thought I knew about Derek Morrison would disintegrate in the space of a single conversation. The call from Michael Hayes came on a Thursday morning, 37 days after Lauren's wedding. I was getting ready for a day shift at the hospital, pouring my second cup of coffee, mentally preparing for what I knew would be a long 12 hours in the ICU. My phone rang, and the caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize with a local area code. I almost didn't answer because I'd been getting spam calls constantly, but something made me pick up on the fourth ring. Mrs. Brennan? This is Michael Hayes from Timeless Moments Photography. I shot your daughter's wedding last month. His voice sounded strained, like he was forcing himself to make the call. Yes, hello, Michael. Are the photos ready? I'd been expecting them for a week, had been checking my email daily because Lauren kept asking when we'd get the album proofs. There was this long, uncomfortable pause on the other end of the line, long enough that I thought maybe we'd been disconnected. Mrs. Brennan, I need you to come to my studio today, as soon as you possibly can. There's something in the photographs, something I discovered while editing, and you need to see it before anyone else does. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. What kind of something? Is Lauren okay? Did something happen at the wedding that I missed? My mind was already racing through possibilities, wondering if maybe there'd been some embarrassing moment caught on camera, maybe someone getting too drunk or an argument I hadn't witnessed. I can't explain this over the phone, but it's important. It's really, really important. And Mrs. Brennan, please, this is crucial. Do not mention this call to Lauren. Don't tell her you're coming to see me. Not yet. Not until after we talk. The fear in his voice was unmistakable now. This wasn't about an unflattering photo or a reception mishap. This was something else entirely. Michael, you're scaring me. Just tell me what's wrong. My hand was shaking so badly the coffee cup rattled against the counter when I set it down. I can't. I need you to see it with your own eyes, because if I tried to explain it, you wouldn't believe me. I barely believe it myself, and I'm looking right at it. Can you come this morning? I'll clear my schedule. This can't wait. I should have pressed harder for information. I should have demanded he tell me what was going on. But the urgency in his voice, the barely controlled panic, told me that whatever he'd found was serious enough that he'd risk upsetting a client, serious enough that he was willing to potentially lose business by making this call. I'm supposed to be at work in an hour. Mrs. Brennan, with all due respect, this is more important than your shift. Please. Your daughter might be in danger. Those last 5 words hit me like a physical blow. Your daughter might be in danger. I told Michael I'd be there in 20 minutes, hung up, and immediately called the hospital to tell them I had a family emergency and wouldn't be coming in. My supervisor wasn't happy, but I'd worked there for 37 years and had almost never called in sick, so she approved it without too many questions. I grabbed my purse and keys, my hands still trembling, and walked out to my car trying to control my breathing. Lauren might be in danger. What could possibly be in wedding photographs that would put Lauren in danger? Had Michael captured something happening in the background of a shot, something criminal, something that implicated Derek in some way? Or was this about someone else at the wedding, some guest with bad intentions? I drove across town to Michael's studio, barely seeing the road, running through every scenario I could imagine. Timeless Moments Photography occupied a renovated warehouse space in the Short North Arts District, all exposed brick and industrial windows and polished concrete floors. I'd been there once before when Lauren and Derek had their engagement photos taken, back when everything still felt normal and safe and right. I parked on the street and practically ran to the entrance. Michael must have been watching for me because he opened the door before I could knock. He looked terrible. Like he genuinely hadn't slept, with dark circles under his eyes and his usually neat hair disheveled. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming so quickly. Please come in. He locked the door behind me, which seemed odd, and led me through the front gallery space where sample wedding albums were displayed on white pedestals, past the studio area with its backdrops and lighting equipment, and into his private office in the back. His office was small and cluttered, every surface covered with equipment, catalogs, and lens caps and memory cards. The focal point was an enormous computer monitor, probably 30 inches across, with a color calibration panel beside it. The screen was on, showing a photograph I recognized immediately. Lauren and Derek at the altar, mid-ceremony, holding hands and gazing at each other with expressions of complete adoration. Please sit down, Michael said, gesturing to a second office chair he'd pulled up beside his. I sat, my eyes fixed on that beautiful image of my daughter on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Michael, please just tell me what's going on. You said Lauren might be in danger. He sat down heavily, like the weight of what he was about to tell me was physically exhausting him. I've been a wedding photographer for 15 years. I shoot about 40 weddings a year, sometimes more. That's roughly 600 weddings over the course of my career, maybe 20,000 individual guests photographed. He was talking fast, his words tumbling over each other. About 3 years ago, I started using facial recognition software to organize my photos. It's an AI program that can identify faces across different images, group them together automatically, makes editing and album creation so much faster. I upload all the photos from a wedding, and the software tags everyone, creates folders for the bride's family, the groom's family, the wedding party, all of that. I nodded. not understanding yet where this was going, but feeling dread building in my chest like a physical pressure. When I uploaded Lauren's wedding photos last week, the software did something it's never done before. It flagged a match. It recognized a face from your daughter's wedding as someone who'd appeared in my archive before. He moved his mouse and clicked something. The screen split, showing two photographs side by side. On the left was Derek at Lauren's wedding, standing at the altar in his navy suit, that same warm smile I'd grown so accustomed to seeing across my dinner table. On the right was Derek in a different tuxedo, black this time, standing in what looked like a garden ceremony venue I didn't recognize, with his arm around a bride I'd never seen before. A blonde woman in an ivory mermaid gown, laughing at something off camera. The same Derek, the same face, the same scar above his left eyebrow, the same slightly crooked front tooth visible when he smiled. I don't understand. Who is that? Is that an ex-girlfriend? An ex-wife? My brain was trying to find an innocent explanation, even though I could already feel the truth forming in the back of my mind. Her name is Melissa Hartwell. She hired me to photograph her wedding in September of 2019, 4 years ago. The groom's name on my contract was Derek Morrison, the same name your son-in-law uses. Michael's voice was gentle but firm, making sure I understood what I was seeing. The same man married this woman 4 years ago and married your daughter 5 weeks ago, both times using the same identity. I stared at the screen, my vision starting to blur around the edges. Maybe they got divorced? People get remarried? That's not illegal. Even as I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. Michael shook his head slowly. Mrs. Brennan. After I found this match, I ran Derek's face through my entire archive, every single wedding I've ever photographed. I let the software search overnight. He paused, his finger hovering over the mouse. It found 2 more matches. He clicked again, and 2 additional photographs appeared on the screen, stacking up like evidence in a police investigation. 4 images now, arranged in a grid. Top left, Derek at Lauren's wedding. Top right, Derek with the blonde bride Melissa. Bottom left, Derek in a gray suit with a red-headed bride in a vintage lace dress, ceremony backdrop suggesting a barn venue somewhere rural. Bottom right, Derek in a charcoal tuxedo with a dark-haired bride, in a sleek, modern gown, what looked like a courthouse or hotel setting behind them. 4 different weddings. 4 different brides. Same groom. My daughter was the 4th woman Derek Morrison had married in the past 5 years, all of them photographed by the same photographer through sheer impossible coincidence, and I was supposed to process this information while sitting in a warehouse office at 9:30 on a Thursday morning. Who are they? My voice came out as barely a whisper. Michael pulled up a document on a second monitor, a spreadsheet with names and dates. Melissa Hartwell married Derek Morrison on September 14, 2019. Jennifer Kozlowski married Derek Morrison on April 3, 2021. Amanda Chen married Derek Morrison on November 12, 2022. And Lauren Brennan married Derek Morrison on May 14, 2023. He'd color-coded the entries. Each bride, in a different pastel shade like this, was a project timeline and not evidence of my son-in-law's secret life. After I found the photos, I started doing research. Basic internet searches, social media, public records. I found all 3 women online fairly easily. They all have Facebook profiles, Instagram accounts, LinkedIn pages. Professional women, all of them. Melissa worked in marketing. Jennifer was a teacher. Amanda was a nurse like you. He pulled up Facebook profiles on the screen, cycling through them one by one, and I saw smiling professional headshots, vacation photos, pictures with friends and family, normal women living normal lives. All 3 of them posted regularly on social media leading up to their weddings. Engagement announcements, bridal shower pictures, countdowns to the big day. Typical bride behavior. Michael clicked through albums of photos showing the progression of each relationship, and my stomach turned as I recognized the pattern. Derek in Christmas photos with each family. Derek at birthday dinners. Derek on weekend getaways. The same performance he'd given me and Lauren, replicated 3 times before with 3 other women. But here's what made me call you Mrs. Brennan. Here's why I said Lauren might be in danger. He pulled up Melissa Hartwell's Facebook page and scrolled down to her last post, dated March 2020, 6 months after her wedding. A generic sunset photo with a caption about new beginnings. This is Melissa's last activity. March 18, 2020. Nothing after that. No posts, no comments, no likes, nothing. Her account just goes silent. He pulled up Jennifer Kozlowski's Instagram next, scrolling to her final post from September 2021, 5 months after her wedding. A picture of coffee and a book with some quote about change. Jennifer's last post, September 23, 2021. After this, nothing. Then Amanda Chen's Facebook, last active February 2023, 3 months after her wedding to Derek. A shared article about nursing burnout. Amanda's last activity, February 7, 2023. He turned to look at me directly, his expression a mixture of fear and apology. 3 women, all married to the same man, using the same name. All of them went completely silent on social media within a year of their weddings. I tried looking up obituaries, thinking maybe they died and that would explain the silence, but I found nothing. I searched marriage records trying to find divorce filings, nothing there either. I even tried calling the phone numbers they'd given me when they booked their weddings, but all 3 numbers are disconnected. The room felt like it was tilting. I gripped the edge of Michael's desk to steady myself. "What are you saying? What do you think happened to them?" He pulled up a news article on the screen, a local story from Akron dated April 2020. I did find this. Melissa Hartwell was reported missing by her sister in April 2020, 1 month after her social media went dark. She was 32 years old, lived in Akron, worked for a marketing firm. According to this article, she missed several days of work without calling in, which was completely out of character. When her sister went to check on her, the apartment was empty. Furniture gone, personal belongings gone, no forwarding address. Her employer said she'd never given notice or mentioned plans to quit. She just vanished. He let me read the article, my eyes scanning words that didn't seem real. Missing person, no signs of foul play, no activity on credit cards or bank accounts, no leads. Police investigated her husband Derek Morrison, but he claimed they'd separated, said Melissa had been unhappy and wanted to start over somewhere new. He said she'd packed her things while he was at work and left a note saying not to look for her. Police asked to see the note, but Derek said he'd thrown it away in anger. With no evidence of a crime, they eventually classified her as a voluntary missing person. The case went cold. Michael pulled up another article, this one from the Cleveland Plain Dealer dated October 2021. Jennifer Kozlowski was reported missing by her parents in October 2021, about a month after her social media stopped. She was a high school English teacher in Cleveland. Same story, essentially. Missed work, apartment cleared out, husband claimed she'd left him for a fresh start. Police found no evidence of foul play. Another cold case? I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight and my vision was narrowing to a tunnel. I couldn't find any news stories about Amanda Chen yet, but her disappearance would be more recent, only a few months ago. It's possible her family hasn't reported it yet, or maybe they did, and it just hasn't made the news. Michael closed the browser windows and turned to face me fully. Mrs. Brennan, I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've never ever encountered anything like this. 1 missing bride might be a tragic coincidence. 2 missing brides married to the same man starts to look like a pattern. 3 missing brides married to the same man, all within months of their weddings, all disappearing the same way, and now that same man is married to your daughter? That's not coincidence anymore. That's a predator with a system. The word predator hung in the air between us like poison gas. I have all of this documented. I printed out the photos, the social media screenshots, the news articles, everything. I made copies on 3 different flash drives, because honestly I'm terrified something will happen to this evidence. He handed me a manila envelope, thick with papers. You need to take this to the police today. Right now. And you need to get Lauren away from Derek immediately, without letting him know that you know anything. If he suspects that someone's discovered his pattern, if he thinks Lauren is a threat, I don't know what he might do, but based on what happened to the others, it won't be good. I took the envelope with numb fingers, unable to process the weight of what I was holding. Evidence that my son-in-law had married at least 3 other women before Lauren. Evidence that all 3 of those women had disappeared. Evidence that my daughter had married a man who might be responsible for multiple murders. Why? The question came out broken and confused. Why would someone do this? What does he get out of marrying these women just to make them disappear? Michael had clearly been thinking about this question. I don't know for certain, but I have a theory. I looked at the wedding invoices, saw what each bride paid for photography, and in every case it was the bride or her family who paid, not the groom. That suggests these women had money, had resources. I'd bet if you looked at their financial records, you'd find that Derek gained access to their bank accounts, their assets, maybe even life insurance policies. Marry them, drain their accounts over a few months, then make them disappear and move on to the next victim. It's a con, Mrs. Brennan. An elaborate, sophisticated con. And your daughter is his latest mark. I thought about the $42,000 I'd spent on the wedding. I thought about Lauren mentioning that she and Derek had opened a joint checking account and combined their finances. I thought about how Derek had encouraged her to add him to the title of her condo, something about tax benefits that I hadn't fully understood. I stood up so fast the chair rolled backward and hit the wall. I need to call her. I need to call Lauren right now and tell her to get out of that house. Michael stood too, putting a hand on my arm. No, you can't call her. If Derek is there, if he overhears the conversation or sees her reaction, you could be putting her in immediate danger. Men like this, when they're cornered, when they realize their cover is blown, they become unpredictable. We need to be smart about this. Take this evidence to the police. Let them handle the approach. They'll know how to extract her safely. Everything in me was screaming to call my daughter, to warn her, to tell her to run, but I knew Michael was right. If I spooked Derek, if I tipped him off that we knew the truth, Lauren could end up like Melissa and Jennifer and Amanda. Disappeared. Gone. Another cold case that would haunt her mother for the rest of her life. Where's the nearest police station? My voice sounded mechanical, like I was reading from a script. District 3 precinct is about 10 minutes from here. I'll give you the address. Tell them everything I showed you. Show them the evidence. They'll take it from there. He scribbled an address on a post-it note and handed it to me along with the envelope. Mrs. Brennan, I'm so sorry. I've been agonizing over whether to make this call for 3 days. Part of me hoped I was wrong, hoped there was some innocent explanation. But I kept thinking about my own daughters and what I'd want someone to do if they were in danger. I had to tell you. I managed to nod, managed to thank him, managed to walk out of his studio and get back to my car without collapsing. But once I was alone in the driver's seat, doors locked, I started shaking so violently I couldn't get the key in the ignition. My daughter was married to a man who'd done this before. 3 times before. And those 3 women were missing, possibly dead, and Lauren was living with him, sleeping beside him every night, completely unaware that she was living with a monster. I sat in my car outside Michael's studio for 10 minutes, trying to control my breathing, trying to process what I'd just learned, trying to figure out how to function when my entire world had just collapsed. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat like a bomb. Inside, it was proof that Derek Morrison had married at least 3 other women before Lauren. Proof that those women had all vanished. Proof that my daughter was living with someone who might be a serial predator. My hands were shaking too badly to drive, so I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing, feeling my heart hammering against my ribs. Finally, I pulled out my phone and searched for the nearest police station. Michael had given me an address, but I needed to see it on a map, needed the concrete reality of a destination to focus on. Columbus Police Department, District 3 Precinct. 15 minutes away on Morse Road. I put the address into my GPS, started the car, and forced myself to drive carefully, normally, like a woman who wasn't carrying evidence of multiple possible murders in a manila envelope. The police station was a squat brick building with a parking lot half full of cruisers and civilian vehicles. I parked, grabbed the envelope, and walked inside on legs that felt disconnected from my body. The front desk area smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. A young officer behind bulletproof glass looked up from his computer. "Can I help you?" I opened my mouth and nothing came out for a second. How do you even start this conversation? I need to report something about my daughter. She might be in danger. Her husband, I just found out he's married other women before and they're missing, and I think he might hurt her. The words tumbled out in a breathless rush that made me sound unhinged. The officer's expression shifted from bored to alert. "Okay, ma'am. I'm going to have you speak with a detective. Please have a seat." He gestured to a row of plastic chairs along the wall and picked up a phone. I sat down, clutching the envelope to my chest. Watching officers move through the station, going about their normal Thursday morning routines, and I felt like I was watching them through glass, separated from the normal world by this terrible knowledge I now carried. About 15 minutes later, a woman in her early 50s emerged from a door beside the front desk. She was African American, medium height, wearing dark slacks and a blazer with a detective's badge clipped to her belt. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes were sharp, assessing. "Mrs. Brennan? I'm Detective Angela Foster. Why don't you come back with me, and we'll talk about what's going on?" I followed her through a maze of corridors to a small interview room with a table, 3 chairs, and a recording camera mounted in the corner. She gestured for me to sit and took the chair across from me, pulling out a notepad. "Okay, Mrs. Brennan, start from the beginning. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Lauren and Derek, about the wedding 5 weeks ago, about Michael Hayes calling me that morning, about the facial recognition software identifying Derek in 3 previous wedding photo archives. I spread the contents of the envelope across the table between us. Photographs of Derek with 4 different brides. Printouts of Michael's wedding contracts showing the same groom name with different bride names and dates. Screenshots of social media profiles showing the 3 previous brides, their engagement announcements, their wedding photos, and then the sudden silence. News articles about Melissa Hartwell being reported missing in April 2020. An article about Jennifer Kozlowski vanishing in October 2021. Notes about Amanda Chen's Facebook going dark in February 2023. Detective Foster listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes, her expression growing more serious as I laid out the pattern. When I finished, she sat back and studied the evidence spread across the table, her jaw tight. "This is extremely concerning, Mrs. Brennan. I'm not going to minimize what you've brought me. But I need to be straight with you about what we can and can't do with this information." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? 3 women are missing. 1 of them was reported to police. Derek was married to all of them. My daughter is married to him right now. Isn't that enough to arrest him?" She held up a hand gently. "Here's the challenge. Derek Morrison isn't wanted for any crime in our jurisdiction. The missing persons cases were investigated by police in Akron and Cleveland, different departments entirely. Without evidence of a crime committed here in Columbus, I can't just arrest him. What I can do is contact those other departments, share this information about the pattern, and see if they want to reopen their investigations with this new context. I can also run Derek Morrison through our databases, check for warrants, priors, anything that would give me cause to bring him in. How long will that take?" My voice came out sharp, almost angry. Detective Foster's expression was sympathetic but firm. "I'll make the calls today. I'll run him through the system right now while you're here. But Mrs. Brennan, I need you to understand something critical. If Derek Morrison realizes he's being investigated, if he suspects anyone knows about his past, he becomes unpredictable. Men like this, if your suspicions are correct, they have escape plans. They know how to disappear. And if your daughter is with him when he realizes the walls are closing in, she could be in immediate danger. So I need you to not tell her about any of this yet. Can you do that?" The question felt impossible. How could I not warn Lauren? How could I let her spend one more night under the same roof as this man? But I understood what Detective Foster was saying. If I called Lauren panicking, if Derek overheard or sensed something was wrong, he might run and take her with him. Or worse, what am I supposed to do? Just pretend everything's normal while my daughter is living with someone who's done this 3 times before? Detective Foster leaned forward, her voice dropping to something gentler. "I know this is terrifying, but we need to be smart. Here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to run Derek Morrison through every database we have access to. Criminal history, marriages, property records, everything. I'm going to call Akron PD and Cleveland PD and share what you've brought me. If we can establish probable cause, if we can connect him to those disappearances or find evidence of fraud or bigamy, I can get a warrant and we'll pick him up. But that's going to take time, maybe 48 hours. In the meantime, I need you to act normal. Call your daughter like you normally would. Don't ask questions about Derek that would seem unusual. Just keep tabs on her, make sure she's safe, and the moment anything feels off, you call me directly. She handed me a business card with her cell phone number written on the back in pen. I took the card, my hands still trembling, and nodded even though everything in me was screaming to run to Lauren's house and drag her out by force. 48 hours. You'll call me in 48 hours with what you found? Detective Foster nodded. I'll call you sooner if I find something urgent. I promise you, Mrs. Brennan. I'm taking this seriously. The pattern you've identified here, if it's what it looks like, this is a priority investigation as of right now. But I need your help. I need you to stay calm and not tip him off. Can you do that? I said yes, even though I had no idea if I actually could. I left the police station at 11:30 in the morning, climbed back into my car, and sat in the parking lot staring at Detective Foster's business card. 48 hours, 2 entire days of knowing what I knew, carrying this terrible weight, while Lauren went about her life completely unaware that she'd married a predator. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't function normally with this information burning a hole through my chest. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started researching. I drove to a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, ordered something I didn't drink, opened my laptop, and began searching for everything I could find about Melissa Hartwell, Jennifer Kozlowski, and Amanda Chen. Melissa first. Her Facebook profile was exactly as Michael had described it, active and normal, right up until March 2020, when it just stopped. I scrolled through her photos, feeling like a voyeur, looking at this stranger's life, seeing her progression from single woman to engaged, to bride, to married, and then nothing. She'd posted wedding photos in September 2019, beautiful images of her and Derek, him in a black tuxedo, her in an ivory mermaid gown, both of them looking radiantly happy. Comments from friends and family congratulating them. Heart emojis, excitement about their future together. Then posts about settling into married life, about combining households, about holiday plans. Her last post was March 18th, 2020. A generic inspirational quote about new chapters and fresh starts superimposed over a sunset photo. 12 people had liked it. 3 had commented with supportive messages. And then silence. No birthday posts in May when she would have turned 33. No anniversary post in September. No activity at all. I found her sister Rachel's profile, public, and filled with increasingly desperate posts about Melissa being missing. The first post was from April 2020. A cheerful, "Has anyone heard from my sister Melissa? She's not answering her phone and I'm getting worried." By May, the posts had turned frantic. Missing person. Posters with Melissa's photo and a tip line number. Please for anyone with information to come forward. Shares and reshares of news articles about her disappearance. Rachel had created a whole Facebook page dedicated to finding Melissa, posting updates about the police investigation, about dead ends, about the agony of not knowing. The most recent post was from 2 months ago, June 2023, 3 years after Melissa vanished. Still no answers, still no closure, still hoping someone knows something. Please, if you know anything about what happened to my sister, come forward. Our family needs peace. Reading those words, understanding that Rachel had been living in this nightmare for 3 years, while Derek moved on to his next victim, and the next, made me feel physically ill. I took screenshots of everything, added them to my own growing file of evidence. Then I searched for Jennifer Kozlowski. Her Instagram profile showed a different aesthetic, more artistic, lots of photos of books and coffee and Cleveland landmarks. She'd been a high school English teacher, 34 years old when she married Derek in April 2021. Her wedding photos showed an outdoor ceremony, cherry blossoms in bloom, Derek in a gray suit, Jennifer in vintage lace, looking like something from the 1920 seconds. Her caption on the wedding photo album was literary, a quote from Jane Austen about happiness in marriage being entirely a matter of chance. The irony of that quote now felt like a punch to the gut. Jennifer had posted regularly through the summer of 2021. Photos of her classroom being set up for the new school year, pictures of books she was reading, snapshots of weekend adventures with Derek, hiking trails, brewery visits, farmers markets, all the normal things couples do. Her last post was September 23, 2021, 5 months after the wedding. A photo of coffee and an open book, caption reading, "Sometimes you need to close one chapter to open another." 43 likes. 8 comments from friends saying things like, "Everything okay?" and "Call me if you need to talk." And then nothing. Her account just froze in time, preserved like a digital tomb. I found a news article from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, dated October 2021, with the headline, "Local Teacher Reported Missing by Family." The article said Jennifer Kozlowski had failed to show up for work on October 4th, hadn't called in, which was completely out of character for a dedicated teacher. When the school contacted her emergency contact, her parents, they'd been unable to reach her. Police performed a welfare check at the apartment she shared with her husband, Derek Morrison. He told them Jennifer had been unhappy, had talked about wanting a fresh start, had packed her belongings, and left a note saying she needed space and time to figure things out. He claimed he'd been devastated, but respected her wishes. Police found no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle. Jennifer's car was gone, suggesting she'd left voluntarily. Her bank account showed a large withdrawal the day before she disappeared. Everything pointed to a woman who'd chosen to walk away from her life. The case was classified as a voluntary missing adult. Reading between the lines now, knowing what I knew, I could see exactly how Derek had staged it. The withdrawal to make it look like she'd taken money to start over somewhere. Her belongings removed to suggest she'd packed. A story about unhappiness to explain why she'd leave. I searched for Amanda Chen next, the nurse, the most recent bride before Lauren. Her Facebook profile was sparse, more private than the others, but her profile picture showed a professional headshot of an Asian American woman in scrubs, smiling warmly. Her cover photo was from her wedding in November 2022, a beautiful shot of her and Derek under an archway of lights. I could see very little else because her privacy settings were tight. But Michael had said her last activity was February 2023, 3 months after her wedding. I searched news archives for her name and missing, but found nothing, which meant either she hadn't been reported yet or her family was handling it privately. 3 women, 3 marriages to Derek Morrison, 3 disappearances within a year of their weddings, following the exact same pattern. And now Lauren, bride number 4, 5 weeks into her marriage, completely unaware she was following a script that had been performed 3 times before. I spent the next 6 hours in that coffee shop searching public records, cross-referencing information, building a timeline. I found marriage certificates for Melissa and Derek filed in Summit County, Ohio in September 2019. Marriage certificate for Jennifer and Derek filed in Cuyahoga County, Ohio in April 2021. Marriage certificate for Amanda and Derek filed in Franklin County, Ohio in November 2022. Marriage certificate for Lauren and Derek filed in Franklin County, Ohio in May 2023. All legal, all official, which meant Derek wasn't technically committing bigamy because he was somehow ending each marriage before starting the next, either through disappearance or death or divorce, though I could find no record of any divorces filed under his name. I searched property records and found that Melissa had owned a condo in Akron that was sold in May 2020, 2 months after she vanished. The seller of record was Derek Morrison, presumably having gained power of attorney or inherited it somehow. The sale price was $218,000. Jennifer had owned a townhouse in Cleveland that was sold in December 2021, 2 months after she disappeared. Again, Derek Morrison was listed as the seller. Sale price $195,000. I couldn't find property records for Amanda Chen, but the pattern was clear. Derek was marrying women with assets, gaining legal access to their finances and property through marriage, then making them disappear and liquidating everything. This wasn't crime of passion. This wasn't about love or relationships or even hatred of women. This was calculated financial predation, cold and systematic, a business model that happened to involve marriage and murder. By the time I looked up from my laptop, the coffee shop was closing, the barista wiping down tables around me. It was after 8 o'clock at night. I'd been researching for almost 9 hours straight. I had dozens of screenshots, pages of notes, a timeline that showed exactly how Derek operated, and I still hadn't heard from Detective Foster. I checked my phone and my heart seized. 7 missed calls from Lauren, 3 voicemails, 12 text messages. Oh God, had something happened? Had Derek realized I knew? Had he heard her? I listened to the first voicemail with my hand pressed against my mouth. Mom, hey, just calling to say hi. Haven't heard from you today, which is weird since you usually call in the morning. Everything okay? Call me back. Her voice sounded normal, cheerful even, completely unaware. The second voicemail was slightly more concerned. Mom? It's me again. I'm getting a little worried since you're not answering. Did you pick up an extra shift? Just text me so I know you're alive. The third voicemail was from an hour ago. Okay, Mom. Now I'm actually worried. You never go this long without checking in. I'm about to drive over there. Please call me. I called her back immediately, my heart pounding. She answered on the first ring. Mom. Oh my God, where have you been? I've been calling you all day. I forced my voice to sound normal, casual, not like someone who just spent 9 hours researching evidence that her son-in-law was a serial predator. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I wasn't feeling well this morning, so I called in sick, and then I took some medication and slept all day. I just woke up and saw all your messages. The lie came easily, frighteningly easily. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? I can bring soup or medicine or whatever you need. Lauren's concern made my chest ache. Here she was, worried about me, offering to take care of me, while I was sitting in a coffee shop with evidence that her husband had murdered 3 other women. No. I'm fine. Just a migraine. I feel much better now. How was your day? I held my breath waiting for her to say something was wrong, that Derek had acted strangely, that she'd noticed something off. Day was good. Busy at work, but good. Derek made dinner tonight, this amazing pasta dish he learned from a cooking video. We were just sitting down to watch a movie when I started freaking out about you not answering. She sounded so happy, so normal, so completely in love. The thought of Derek in her kitchen cooking dinner, playing the role of devoted husband while planning God knows what, made me want to scream. That sounds lovely. I'm glad you two are having a nice evening. Listen, I'm going to go back to sleep. Try to shake this headache completely. I'll call you in the morning. Okay? We said goodnight, and I love you. And then I sat in my car in the dark parking lot and cried for the first time since this nightmare started. Hard, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep and terrified and furious. My daughter was in danger, and I couldn't tell her, couldn't warn her, couldn't protect her. I had to pretend everything was fine while waiting for the police to find enough evidence to act. I drove home in a daze, barely aware of the roads or other cars. My house felt empty and threatening in a way it never had before, every shadow potentially hiding some new horror. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone on the pillow beside me, jumping at every notification sound. At 2 a.m, I got up and went through my own filing cabinets, looking for the paperwork from Lauren's wedding. The marriage certificate, the vendor contracts, the guest list. I found a copy of the marriage license application and studied Derek's information. Derek James Morrison. Date of birth, listed as March 15th, 1978, making him 45 years old. Social Security number partially visible. Address listed as Lauren's condo, where he'd moved in 3 months before the wedding. Previous marriage listed as divorced. No details about when or who. I took photos of everything, added it to my evidence file, then spent the rest of the night searching databases for Derek James Morrison, born in March 1978. I found dozens of men with that name across the country, but none whose photos matched the Derek I knew, which suggested the name might be fake, or the birth date was wrong, or both. If he was using a stolen identity, that would explain why he kept marrying under the same name instead of using different aliases. He'd found one identity that worked, one backstory that was believable, and he stuck with it. Professional con artists often do that, build one solid fake identity instead of juggling multiple personas. Detective Foster had to be finding the same inconsistencies in her investigation, had to be seeing the same red flags. I checked my phone, obsessively waiting for her to call, waiting for news, waiting for anything that would tell me Lauren was going to be safe. Friday morning came. 24 hours since I'd gone to the police. No call from Detective Foster. I got ready for work mechanically, called Lauren to check in and hear her voice, confirmed she was fine and heading to her office for a normal day. Went through my shift at the hospital on autopilot, taking vitals and administering medications and charting notes while my mind screamed with everything I couldn't say. Friday evening came. Still no call. I drove past Lauren's condo twice just to see Derek's car in the driveway, just to confirm he was still there and not fleeing. The lights were on inside, everything looking domestic and peaceful from the outside. Saturday morning, 36 hours after my police station visit, I finally got the call. Detective Foster's number lit up my screen at 9:15 a.m., and I answered before the first ring finished. "Mrs. Brennan, it's Angela Foster. I have updates, and we need to talk. Can you come to the station?" Her voice was tight, controlled, and I knew she'd found something. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I grabbed my keys and drove to the District 3 precinct for the second time in 2 days, my heart racing with hope and terror in equal measure. Detective Foster met me in the lobby and led me back to the same interview room. This time the table was covered with file folders and printed documents, evidence of her investigation. "Mrs. Brennan, I've spent the last 36 hours on the phone with police departments across Ohio and running every database search I have access to. I need to show you what I found because it's worse than we thought." She opened the first folder and my hands went cold. Derek James Morrison doesn't exist. The social security number he used on his marriage application to your daughter belongs to a Derek Morrison who died in 1982 at age 4. The birth certificate is fraudulent. His driver's license is a good fake, but it's still a fake. The man your daughter married is using a stolen identity, which means we have no idea who he actually is. She opened another folder, showing printouts of the missing persons reports for Melissa Hartwell and Jennifer Kozlowski. I spoke with detectives in Akron and Cleveland. Both of those cases are being reopened as of yesterday. Both departments are now treating them as suspected homicides based on the pattern you identified. They're requesting FBI involvement because this crosses multiple jurisdictions. She opened a third folder. This one containing surveillance photos I didn't recognize, grainy images of a man who looked like Derek, but in different contexts, different locations. After we established the identity was fake, I sent Derek's photo to a fraud task force that tracks con artists and identity thieves. They recognized him immediately. They've been trying to identify this man for 7 years. He's suspected in at least 12 cases of marriage fraud across 6 states, not just Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, probably more we haven't connected yet. He targets professional women in their 30s, usually recently divorced or widowed, financially stable, often isolated from extended family. He builds the relationship fast, marries within a year, gains access to their assets, then they disappear. In 2 cases, the women were found dead, staged to look like accidents or suicides. In the rest, they just vanish. My vision was narrowing, black spots creeping in from the edges. 12 women. You're saying he's done this to 12 women? Detective Foster nodded slowly, her expression grim. At least 12 that we can confirm. The pattern goes back almost a decade. The earliest case we found was in Michigan in 2014, a woman named Sarah Chen who married a man calling himself Derek Morrison, same identity your son-in-law is using now. She disappeared 7 months after the wedding. Her family reported her missing, but police found a note saying she needed to get away, found evidence she'd withdrawn cash and packed her belongings, so it was classified as voluntary. Her case went cold. Then 2 years later, in Pennsylvania, another woman, another marriage to Derek Morrison, another disappearance, then Illinois, Indiana, back to Ohio. He moves around, never stays in one state for more than 2 victims, probably to avoid creating an obvious pattern that local police would notice. She spread out a map with red pins marking locations across the Midwest, each pin representing a woman who'd married this man and vanished. The task force believes he's using multiple identities, but Derek Morrison is his primary one, the one he's most comfortable with, the one with the best documentation. They think his real name might be Daniel Kovac, a former insurance investigator from Wisconsin who disappeared in 2013 after being fired for fraudulent claims processing, but they can't confirm it because there are no fingerprints on file and he's never been arrested before. Whoever he is, he's smart. He understands how the system works, knows exactly how to exploit the gaps between jurisdictions, between agencies that don't talk to each other. He knows that missing adult cases get deprioritized, especially when there's evidence suggesting they left voluntarily. He knows that without a body, without proof of foul play, police have limited resources to investigate. He's been getting away with this for nearly 10 years because he's studied the system and learned how to game it. The casual professionalism in her voice made it somehow worse, like we were discussing a skilled craftsman instead of a serial predator. What happens now? How do we get Lauren away from him safely? My voice sounded distant, mechanical, like it belonged to someone else. Detective Foster leaned forward, her elbows on the table. We're moving on him today. I've coordinated with the fraud task force and the FBI. We're obtaining a warrant for his arrest on identity theft and fraud charges. Those are what we can prove right now, today, with documentation. The marriage fraud, the missing persons cases, those will take longer to build, but we have enough to pick him up and hold him. The challenge is doing it in a way that doesn't put Lauren at risk. If we knock on their door and he realizes what's happening, if he has any warning at all, this could go bad very fast. These men, when they're cornered, they either run or they escalate. Sometimes they take their current victim with them as a hostage. Sometimes they harm them to eliminate a witness. We need to separate Lauren from Derek before we make our move. How do we do that? I was already running through scenarios in my head, ways to get Lauren out of that house without Derek suspecting anything. You're going to call her. Right now. You're going to tell her you're not feeling well, that you need her to come take care of you. Make it urgent, but not emergency urgent. A bad reaction to medication, maybe. Something that requires her presence, but won't make Derek insist on coming along or calling an ambulance. Once she's at your house, once she's safe with you, we'll move in and take Derek into custody. Then we'll bring Lauren to the station and explain everything. It sounded so simple, so clean, but my hands were shaking as Detective Foster handed me my phone. What if he doesn't let her leave? What if he's already suspicious? She met my eyes seriously. Then you tell her it's a medical emergency and you're calling 911. That will force his hand, make it too public for him to prevent her from leaving without exposing himself. But try the softer approach first. We don't want to spook him. I dialed Lauren's number, my finger trembling over the screen. It rang 3 times before she answered, slightly breathless like she'd run to grab her phone. Mom, hey, what's up? Her voice sounded so normal, so happy, so unaware that her entire life was about to implode. Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry to bother you on a Saturday morning, but I'm not feeling well. I think I had a reaction to some medication, and I'm feeling dizzy and nauseous, and I don't want to drive myself to urgent care, but I also don't want to call an ambulance for something that's probably nothing. Could you possibly come over and either take me to get checked out, or just sit with me for a bit until I feel better? The lie came out smooth and practiced, maternal concern masking absolute terror. There was a pause, and I could hear Derek's voice in the background asking what was wrong. Oh no, of course I'll come over. Let me just grab my keys. Derek's asking if you want him to come too, if you need both of us. My heart stopped. Detective Foster was shaking her head emphatically, mouthing, no, just her. I forced my voice to stay casual. No, don't make Derek give up his Saturday. I'm sure it's nothing serious. I probably just need some company more than anything. You know how I get when I don't feel well? I just want my daughter. I heard Lauren laugh softly. Okay, Mom, I get it. You want girl time. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Do you need me to pick up anything on the way? Ginger ale? Crackers? We talked for another minute about what I might need, playing out this absurd charade while Detective Foster monitored on speaker, and then Lauren said she'd see me soon and hung up. I set my phone down on the table and realized my whole body was shaking. She's coming. 15 minutes. Derek's staying at the house. Detective Foster nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. That's perfect. I've got units staged 2 blocks from their condo. Once Lauren's car leaves and we confirm she's heading to your house, we'll move in. With any luck, Derek won't even know what's happening until we've got him in handcuffs. What do I tell Lauren? When she gets to my house and realizes I'm not actually sick, what do I say? This was the part I'd been dreading most. The moment I'd have to look my daughter in the eye and tell her that the man she loved, the man she'd married 5 weeks ago in a ceremony I'd paid for, was a predator who'd done this to at least 11 other women. Detective Foster's expression softened with sympathy. Tell her the truth. Show her everything you showed me. The photos from the photographer, the missing persons cases, all of it. She's going to be in shock. She's going to be in denial. She might not believe you at first. That's normal. But once we have Derek in custody, once we can confirm his identity is fake and show her the evidence we've gathered, she'll have to accept it. And Mrs. Brennan, she's going to need you. This is going to be traumatic in ways that are hard to predict. She's going to blame herself, question every decision she made, wonder how she missed the signs. You're going to have to be strong for both of you. I nodded even though I had no idea how to be strong when I felt like I was shattering into pieces. I drove home in a fog of adrenaline and dread, checking my rearview mirror obsessively to make sure I wasn't being followed, though I had no reason to think Derek would be tailing me. Detective Foster had given me her cell number and told me to call the second Lauren arrived safely, then keep her at the house until they confirmed Derek was in custody. I pulled into my driveway, went inside, and tried to make the house look like someone who was genuinely ill had been living in it all morning. I messed up the couch cushions, left a glass of water on the coffee table, turned on the television to some daytime talk show. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Foster. Units in position, waiting for Target's wife to leave residence. Target's wife. That's what Lauren was to them, a tactical element in an arrest operation. To me, she was my daughter, my only child, about to have her heart broken in the worst possible way. 12 minutes after I got home, I heard Lauren's car pull into the driveway. I watched through the window as she got out carrying a grocery bag, probably filled with the ginger ale and crackers she'd mentioned, completely unaware that this was all theater. She let herself in with her key, calling out, "Mom? Where are you?" I came out from the kitchen trying to look pale and unsteady. "I'm here, sweetheart. Thank you so much for coming." She set the bag down and came over to hug me, and I held onto her maybe a little too long, a little too tight. "You do look pale. Have you taken your temperature? When did you take the medication that made you feel bad?" She was shifting into caretaker mode, the same way I'd done for her countless times when she was growing up, and the role reversal made my throat tight. "Let's sit down. I need to talk to you about something." I guided her to the couch, my phone in my pocket buzzing with what I knew was Detective Foster, confirming Lauren had left the condo and asking me to keep her there. "Mom, you're scaring me. What's going on? Are you really sick or is this about something else?" Lauren's eyes were searching my face, starting to see through the performance. I pulled out my phone and texted Detective Foster a single word: safe. Then I turned to my daughter and tried to figure out how to destroy her world. "I'm not sick. I'm sorry I lied to get you over here, but I needed you away from Derek, and I needed you somewhere safe, and I didn't know how else to do it." Her expression shifted from concern to confusion to the beginning of fear. "Away from Derek? Mom, what are you talking about? Why would I need to be away from my husband?" The word husband caught in her throat, and I could see her starting to get defensive, starting to build the walls that wives build when someone criticizes their marriage. I pulled out the manila envelope, now dog-eared from being handled so many times over the past 2 days, and spread the contents across my coffee table between us. 2 days ago, the wedding photographer called me. He found something in his archives, something about Derek that you need to see. I showed her the photographs first, the side-by-side images of Derek at 4 different weddings with 4 different brides. Lauren stared at them, her brain visibly struggling to process what she was looking at. "I don't understand. These are photoshopped or something, right? Someone's trying to make Derek look bad, maybe an ex with a grudge?" But even as she said it, I could see doubt creeping into her eyes because the photos were too detailed, too high quality, too clearly authentic. They're real. Michael Hayes, your photographer, he uses facial recognition software to organize his archives. When he uploaded your wedding photos, the software flagged Derek's face as matching someone from 3 previous weddings he'd shot. 3 other brides, Lauren, Melissa Hartwell in 2019, Jennifer Kozlowski in 2021, Amanda Chen in 2022, all of them married a man named Derek Morrison. All of them disappeared within a year of their weddings. I watched the color drain from Lauren's face as she picked up the printouts, studying each bride's face, each wedding photo, seeing the pattern I'd seen. Disappeared? What do you mean disappeared? Her voice had gone small and young, like a child asking about something she doesn't want to understand. I showed her the news articles, the missing persons reports, the Facebook posts from desperate family members searching for their sisters and daughters. Melissa Hartwell was reported missing in April 2020. Her sister has been looking for her for 3 years. Jennifer Kozlowski vanished in October 2021, reported missing by her parents. Amanda Chen's social media went dark in February of this year. And all of them, every single one, had married Derek Morrison in the months before they disappeared. All of them had combined finances with him, given him access to their bank accounts and property. All of them had their assets liquidated shortly after they vanished. Lauren was shaking her head, tears starting to stream down her face. No, this is insane. Derek wouldn't. He's not. There has to be an explanation. I went to the police yesterday. Detective Angela Foster. She's been investigating this for the past 2 days. Derek Morrison isn't his real name, Lauren. The identity he's using belongs to a child who died in 1982. His social security number is stolen. His driver's license is fake. The man you married is using a fraudulent identity, and the police have connected him to at least 12 cases of marriage fraud across 6 states going back almost a decade. 12 women, maybe more, who married him and disappeared. I was crying now too, watching my daughter's face crumble as the truth settled over her like a shroud. The police are at your condo right now. They're arresting him. Detective Foster needed you somewhere safe, away from him, before they moved in because women in your position, when these men get cornered, sometimes they become hostages or worse. I had to get you out of there without him suspecting anything. Lauren stood up abruptly, backing away from the coffee table, like the evidence spread across it might contaminate her. This is crazy. You've lost your mind. Derek is my husband. He loves me. We just got married 5 weeks ago. You never liked him, did you? You've been looking for a reason to break us up since the beginning, and now you've manufactured this insane conspiracy. The denial was expected. Detective Foster had warned me about it. But hearing the accusation in Lauren's voice still felt like a knife. Lauren, please, I know this is impossible to process, but you have to listen to me. I've spent 2 days researching this, talking to police, gathering evidence. This is real. Derek is not who he says he is. My phone rang, Detective Foster's number lighting up the screen. I answered on speaker so Lauren could hear. Mrs. Brennan, we have him in custody. Derek Morrison was arrested without incident approximately 10 minutes ago. We're transporting him to the station now for processing and questioning. How is Lauren doing? My daughter's face went white, and she sank back down onto the couch, her legs seemingly unable to hold her. She's here with me. She's in shock, but she's safe. Detective Foster's voice became gentler, addressing Lauren directly. Lauren, this is Detective Angela Foster with Columbus PD. I know this is overwhelming and frightening, but I need you to understand that you were in danger. The man you married has been using a false identity to prey on women for nearly a decade. We've connected him to multiple missing persons cases, and we have evidence of extensive financial fraud. You're safe now. Your mother did the right thing by calling you away from the house. I'm going to need you to come to the station later today to give a statement and to help us understand the extent of his access to your finances. But right now, the most important thing is that you're safe and he's in custody. Lauren was staring at the phone, like it was speaking a foreign language. I want to see him. I want to talk to Derek. There has to be some mistake. Detective Foster's response was firm, but not unkind. That's not possible right now. He's being processed, and he'll be assigned a lawyer. But Lauren, I strongly advise you not to have any contact with him. Everything he's told you is likely a lie. Every emotion he's shown you was likely manipulation. I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. After we hung up, Lauren sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring at the evidence scattered across my coffee table. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The joint bank account. We opened it 2 months ago. I transferred most of my savings into it, about $58,000. Derek said it would be easier to manage household expenses from one account. He has the debit card. He has online access. The realization was dawning, the financial manipulation becoming clear. We need to check that account right now. Do you have online banking access? She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and logged into her bank app. The color that had started to return to her face disappeared again. It's empty. The account is completely empty. There was a withdrawal yesterday for $57,900, cash withdrawal from a branch in Dayton. Oh my God. Oh my God, he was planning to leave. He was going to disappear and take everything just like he did to those other women. She started hyperventilating, her breath coming in short gasps, and I pulled her against me, holding her while she sobbed. He was going to kill me, wasn't he? That's what happened to the others. He married them, took their money, and then he killed them and made it look like they'd run away or had accidents. I was going to be next. I couldn't lie to her, couldn't tell her she was wrong when everything pointed to exactly that conclusion. I don't know what he was planning, but you're safe now. He can't hurt you. The police have him, and they're building a case, and he's not getting out. We sat like that for a long time, mother and daughter holding each other while the life Lauren thought she had disintegrated around us. My phone kept buzzing with updates from Detective Foster. Derek had refused to speak without a lawyer. His fingerprints had been run through every database with no matches, confirming he had no criminal record under any identity. The FBI was getting involved because the case crossed state lines. Search warrants were being executed on the condo and on a storage unit rented under Derek's name. They were finding things, Detective Foster said, but she wouldn't elaborate over the phone. 3 hours after Lauren arrived at my house, Detective Foster called, asking us to come to the station. Lauren was still in shock, moving through the world like a sleepwalker, but she agreed to go. We drove in silence, my hand holding hers across the center console, both of us trying to process a reality that felt impossible. At the station, Detective Foster met us and led us not to an interview room, but to a conference room where files and evidence boxes covered a long table. Before you give your statement, I need to show you what we found. I need you to understand the scope of what you were involved in, what he was planning. She opened a laptop and turned the screen toward us. This was on a hard drive hidden in your bedroom closet, Lauren, behind a false panel in the wall that we only found because we brought in a K9 unit trained to detect hidden compartments. The screen showed a spreadsheet, meticulously organized, with columns for names, dates, locations, assets, and status. There were 43 rows, 43 women's names. Some I recognized from my research over the past 2 days. Melissa Hartwell, status, complete assets, $218. Jennifer Kozlowski, status, complete assets, $195. Amanda Chen, status, complete assets, $167. And there at row 43 was Lauren Brennan, status, in progress, projected assets, $285,000. My daughter made us sound like a wounded animal. He was keeping score. He was tracking us like we were transactions in a business ledger. Detective Foster nodded grimly. It's worse than that. We found additional files, detailed plans for each woman, background research, financial profiles, psychological assessments, even scripts for conversations. He studied each of you, figured out your vulnerabilities, your desires, your fears, and then he became exactly what you needed. For you, Lauren, he noted that you'd lost your father 6 years ago and were close with your mother. His plan was to position himself as a family-oriented man who valued those same bonds. He researched your father's hobbies and interests so he could mirror them in conversations. He knew you worked in pharmaceutical sales, So he created a backstory as a medical device consultant, close enough to your world to seem compatible but distant enough that you wouldn't have professional overlap that might expose his lies. She pulled up another file, this one containing photographs that made my blood run cold, pictures of Lauren taken from a distance, before she'd ever met Derek. Coming out of her office building, having coffee with friends, walking through a grocery store parking lot. He was watching you for at least 3 months before he engineered your meeting at that medical conference. The conference wasn't coincidence. He bought a ticket specifically to be there, specifically to cross your path, and he'd planned the entire initial conversation based on research into your interests and background. Everything you thought was organic connection was actually calculated manipulation. Lauren was openly weeping now, her hands covering her face. How many of them did he kill? The women marked complete. Are they all dead? Detective Foster's expression was somber. We don't know for certain. We've confirmed 2 bodies, women whose deaths were ruled accidental but are now being reinvestigated as homicides. The rest are missing. Some of them might be alive somewhere, though I think that's unlikely. He was efficient, methodical. He didn't leave loose ends. The word efficient applied to murder made me want to vomit. There's something else. Detective Foster pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing a small cardboard box. We found this in the storage unit. It contains jewelry. Wedding rings, engagement rings, personal items belonging to at least 20 different women. Trophies, essentially. He was keeping souvenirs from his victims. She opened the bag and I could see delicate gold and silver bands, diamonds catching the fluorescent light, each ring representing a life destroyed. We're working with the FBI to identify the owners of these items, to connect them to missing persons cases across the country. Based on what we found, we believe Derek, or whatever his real name is, has been doing this for at least 15 years, not the 10 we initially thought. He's one of the most prolific predators we've encountered. And if your photographer hadn't happened to use facial recognition software, if he hadn't made that call to you, Lauren would have been number 44 on that spreadsheet. He was already planning his exit strategy. The cash withdrawal yesterday was the beginning. He was going to stage your disappearance within the next month, liquidate your remaining assets, and move on to his next target. Lauren looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Who is he? What's his real name? Detective Foster shook her head. We still don't know. His fingerprints aren't in any system. His DNA isn't in any database. The earliest identity we can trace is Derek Morrison, starting in 2009, but we know that's stolen. Before that, he's a ghost. He's been interviewed since his arrest, and he refuses to provide any information about his true identity or background. Won't even confirm his real name. The FBI has profilers working on it, trying to build a picture of who he might be. But right now he's John Doe, a man who's spent at least 15 years systematically destroying women's lives for profit, and we don't even know what to call him. The existential horror of that, the idea that this monster didn't even have a name, made the room feel like it was closing in. My daughter had married a man who didn't exist, had pledged her life to a ghost, had nearly been murdered by someone whose real identity might never be known. The trial took 8 months to begin. 8 months of Lauren living back in my house, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, trying to rebuild a sense of safety that had been completely shattered. The prosecution built their case methodically, connecting the man we knew as Derek Morrison to a pattern of fraud spanning 15 years and at least 43 victims across a dozen states. They charged him with identity theft, wire fraud, money laundering, and in the cases where they'd found bodies, second-degree murder. The defense tried to argue mistaken identity, tried to claim the evidence was circumstantial, but the spreadsheet found in that storage unit, the detailed plans, the jewelry from dozens of victims. It was overwhelming. Lauren testified on day 3 of the trial. I sat in the gallery watching my daughter describe how Derek had courted her, married her, gained access to her finances, all while planning her eventual disappearance. She was composed, factual, heartbreaking. Other women testified too. The families of Melissa Hartwell and Jennifer Kozlowski, describing the agony of their loved ones vanishing without explanation. A woman named Cassandra from Michigan, who'd escaped before Derek could complete his plan, who'd grown suspicious when he pressured her to update her life insurance and had hired a private investigator that uncovered his lies. An FBI forensic accountant who walked the jury through the money trail, showing how Derek had stolen over $4 million from his victims over the course of his crime spree. The prosecution presented evidence that 2 of the women whose deaths had been ruled accidental were actually staged murders. Melissa Hartwell's case was reclassified as a homicide based on new forensic analysis. A woman named Rebecca Torres from Indiana, originally thought to have committed suicide in 2017, was now believed to have been murdered by Derek after she discovered his true identity. The evidence was damning, comprehensive, irrefutable. The jury deliberated for 9 hours, across 2 days. When they returned with a verdict, the courtroom was packed with victims' families, survivors, law enforcement officers who'd worked the case. Guilty on all 47 counts. Lauren gripped my hand so tightly I lost circulation in my fingers, but I didn't care. The judge sentenced him to life in federal prison without possibility of parole, multiple consecutive sentences that ensured he would die behind bars. When the sentence was read, I watched Derek's face, searching for some flicker of remorse, some acknowledgement of the lives he'd destroyed. Nothing. His expression remained blank, almost bored, like this was happening to someone else. As they led him out of the courtroom in shackles, he looked directly at Lauren and smiled. A small, cold smile that made my blood freeze. That image still haunts both of us. The aftermath was harder than the trial in some ways. Lauren had to rebuild her entire life from scratch. Her savings were gone, her credit damaged, her trust in her own judgment destroyed. She moved back in with me permanently, selling the condo that held too many painful memories. She took a leave of absence from her job, spent 6 months in intensive therapy, working through the trauma of realizing she'd been sleeping next to a man who'd planned to murder her. There were dark days when she didn't get out of bed, when the shame and self-blame were so overwhelming she couldn't function. I watched my daughter grieve not just the loss of her marriage, but the loss of her sense of self, her belief that she could navigate the world safely. It was excruciating to witness, and there was nothing I could do except be present, be patient, be the anchor she needed while she found her way back. But slowly, incrementally, she healed. She started attending a support group for survivors of romance fraud and found community with other women who'd been through similar ordeals. She realized she wasn't uniquely foolish or broken, that predators like Derek targeted smart, successful, emotionally healthy women specifically because they had assets worth stealing. She began speaking publicly about her experience, doing interviews with local news stations, writing articles about the warning signs of financial predation in relationships. About a year after the trial, she started a non-profit organization called Safe Hearts, dedicated to educating women about romance, fraud, and providing resources for survivors. The organization has grown beyond anything she imagined, now operating in 12 states with a 24-hour helpline and legal advocacy services. She channeled her trauma into purpose, and watching her transformation has been the one bright spot in this nightmare. As for me, I went back to work at Riverside Medical Center, where I've spent the last 37 years. I still do my 12-hour shifts in the ICU, still come home exhausted, still make my tea at 9 o'clock every night. But I'm different in ways both visible and invisible. I don't apologize for my instincts anymore. When something feels wrong, I say so, clearly and without softening my words to make others comfortable. 3 months ago, a young nurse on my unit mentioned her new boyfriend had asked her to add him to her bank account after dating for only 6 weeks. I pulled her into the break room and told her Lauren's story, showed her the warning signs, gave her resources. She ended the relationship that same week and later found out the man had done the same thing to 2 other women he'd dated. Maybe I saved her from Derek's kind of predator. Maybe I didn't. But I'll never again stay silent when I see red flags, never again prioritize politeness over protection. 6 months after the trial, I went back to Michael Hayes' photography studio. I'd thought about calling first but decided to just show up, needing to thank him face to face for the courage it took to make that phone call that saved my daughter's life. He was surprised to see me, immediately anxious, asking if everything was okay, if Lauren was safe. I told him about the trial, about the conviction, about the 43 victims they'd identified and the countless others who were probably still out there unnamed. I told him that without his decision to run that facial recognition software, without his willingness to get involved in something that wasn't technically his business, Lauren would have been victim number 44. I handed him an envelope containing a check for $5,000 and a handwritten letter from Lauren thanking him for seeing what others had missed. He tried to refuse the money, said he'd just been doing what anyone would do, but I insisted. Most people wouldn't have done what he did. Most people would have convinced themselves it was none of their concern, that they might be wrong, that they shouldn't get involved. Michael Hayes chose differently, and that choice saved my daughter's life. It's been 2 years now since that Thursday morning when Michael called me with a shaking voice and told me to come to his studio. 2 years since I learned that the man I'd welcomed into my home, the man I'd paid $42,000 to marry my daughter, was a predator who'd been destroying women's lives for over a decade. Lauren still lives with me. She dates occasionally now, cautiously, with boundaries that some men find off-putting, but that keep her safe. She runs Safe Hearts from a small office downtown and just hired 2 full-time staff members to help manage the growing demand for their services. She's writing a book about her experience, hoping to reach even more women who might be in danger without realizing it. She'll never be the same person she was before Derek, none of us will. But she's built a new life from the wreckage, and I'm proud of the woman she's become. If you're watching this and something feels wrong about someone in your life or in the life of someone you love, trust that feeling. You're not being paranoid. You're not overreacting. You're listening to the instinct that's kept humans alive for thousands of years, the one that recognizes predators even when they're wearing a charming smile and bringing flowers to Sunday dinner. Derek Morrison, or whatever his real name is, he's in prison now, serving life without parole. But there are others like him out there right now, running the same playbook, targeting vulnerable women, counting on our silence and our politeness and our fear of being wrong to let them operate unchecked. Don't give them that gift. Speak up, ask questions, demand answers, share stories like Lauren's so other women know what to look for. The man who nearly killed my daughter relied on isolation, on each victim thinking she was alone in her suspicions, on families not talking openly about uncomfortable topics. My name is Patricia Brennan. I'm 63 years old. I've been a critical care nurse for 38 years, a widow for 8 years, and a mother every single day of my adult life. I almost lost my daughter to a monster who performed the role of perfect son-in-law so convincingly that I questioned my own instincts when they tried to warn me something was wrong. A photographer I'd hired to capture memories ended up saving her life by trusting technology and his own moral compass enough to make an uncomfortable phone call. That's all it took. One person willing to speak up, one person who saw something and said something despite the risk of being wrong or causing offense. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Your instincts exist for a reason. The discomfort you feel around someone, the questions that nag at you, the details that don't quite add up, those aren't bugs in your system. They're features. They're your subconscious processing information your conscious mind hasn't caught up to yet. Listen to them, trust them, act on them. It might save your life or the life of someone you love. And that possibility is worth any amount of temporary awkwardness or social discomfort. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for permission. If something feels wrong, say something. It might just save a life. The man known as Derek Morrison is currently serving life in federal prison without possibility of parole. His true identity remains unknown. The FBI continues to investigate cases potentially connected to his crime pattern. Melissa Hartwell and Jennifer Kozlowski have never been found. Their families continue searching for answers. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial manipulation or coercive control in a relationship, please contact the National Domestic Violence. Lauren Brennan's nonprofit organization Safe Hearts provides resources and support for survivors of romance fraud. You can find them online. This story is based on real events and real patterns of predatory behavior. Names and identifying details have been changed. Please share this story. It could save someone's life. Trust your instincts, always.